Let's go into some news, and there was a bit of it coming out of NXT. I guess the most concerning part was the injury to Mercedes Martinez. This was a pretty vicious-looking spot where it was the mixed tag where Xia Li threw this spinning wheel kick and just caught Martinez flush. And this was, I mean, any knockout you have seen, I mean, you could see all the telltale signs. Like, she was rocked and just goes down, and Xia Li goes for the cover, and you can see Mercedes just almost instinctually having her shoulder up. And I thought that the referee, Aja Smith, was really on top of things here to just immediately sense the problem. The bell was called. It's something you and I have really hit on, the fact that when something like this occurs, especially a head injury, match is over. And they ended it. And I thought they handled it about as well as they could in a live television setting. But after the fact, Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp reported that talent and staff had been told that she was being taken to the hospital to be evaluated. I would imagine, Way, that she's going to have to go through all the concussion protocol, and we obviously hope that it is a quick recovery for Mercedes Martinez, because a scary moment on live TV on Tuesday.
Yeah, very scary. You know, if you're like somebody who watches martial arts, this is about as clean of a knockout. And typically, like, if you see something like this in active competition where something like this is expected, I mean, this type of stuff is sometimes celebrated, right? Which kind of like makes me feel weird, honestly, these days about watching like kickboxing or boxing, sure, or MMA. But in a pro wrestling context, when this is not supposed to happen, two people are there in cooperation to put on an entertainment performance. You know, it's really scary. And what's especially scary is, okay, in a pro wrestling context, you don't know what's going to happen. Typically in MMA, or at least in a combat sport, something like this happens. The person goes right to the hospital. There's no questions asked. In wrestling, we're used to just shenanigans. Anything goes. It's the Wild West. Thankfully, I feel like the WWE really, like, at this point, they've really kind of made a concerted effort to say, okay, no more fooling around. Something like this happens, we end it. And that was displayed last night, and I'm really grateful for it, because
there was no like deer in the headlights reactions. It's like, and to a degree you have some sympathy in these situations, but like they acted quick when they sensed there was a problem. Boom, bell rang. Like, I thought they handled it very well. They did not put Mercedes Martinez in any additional danger. There wasn't, oh, we're not at the finish yet. God forbid we don't get to a finish on a show. It's like, none of that matters. So I think they deserve definitely congratulations for the way they handled it as safely as you can in that scenario.
We're talking about a sport, or at least a TV show, where they can come up with an excuse for anything to write away any sort of real life issue. So I never buy the excuse that, oh, we have to get to this finish, even though there was a title at stake. Who cares? Like, even if it was like a, I don't know, loser leaves town retirement stipulation, they renege on everything. You can rewrite yourself out of any situation. So
it's a pride thing, I think, as much as anything. And again, like, you go back, one of the most glorified gutting through a match scenarios is Paul Levesque. I mean, that is one of the hallmarks of his career. Now, granted, not a head injury, but nonetheless, a very serious, debilitating injury that he is continuing, and that he continued with for several more minutes with, and that is a ultra celebrated feat of strength that Triple H was able to project. And yet, when Daniel Bryan had the stinger on Raw and it was called off, like, he was ready to fight Paul Levesque for that hypocritical call, even though they were completely in the right to protect Bryan Danielson from himself. That's where I think a lot of it's just pride in the performer to, that's what we do. We've always finished the match.
No, it's
I'm hoping that mentality is very much shifting.
Oh, it's the bullshit macho thing, and it's not just the men, but I'm sure it goes for the women as well. That I'm really happy to see the industry, you know, be okay to walk away from, and I'm sure it was a really scary and disappointing moment for Xia Li as well. You know, you could tell she was certainly rattled being involved in a situation like that, being put on live TV to react to it. And I'm sure she's taken it probably really hard, you know, backstage. So, you know, it's a contact sport. It's a contact performance art. And I mean, I imagine, you know, these
issues are going to happen. And it's with that knowledge of, okay, when they do happen, God forbid, how are we going to react to them? That's the best you can do, because of course these things will happen. That's inevitable. The other notable outcome on Tuesday was Bronson Reed losing the North American title to Isaiah Swerve Scott. And this comes after they had clearly been indicating a program with Bronson Reed and Santos Escobar. And with dropping the title to Isaiah Scott, I mean, it's like Great American Bash looked like it was all full for next week. I mean, you're only going to put two and two together here and assume that Bronson Reed, with the recent look he's had on the main roster, are his days numbered in NXT. I think that's the only conclusion people are going to come to.
That would be the assumption. Yeah. I mean, interesting, I guess, that it wasn't Santos Escobar to be the one to take it from him. I would imagine he was probably going to beat Santos, maybe just keep the belt a little longer. But ultimately, maybe Swerve was the destination for Bronson to lose to anyway. He is Hit Row is incredibly hot right now. And I mean, I'm excited, actually. Maybe this will be a blessing in disguise, certainly for NXT, maybe certainly for them, but maybe for NXT overall, because that is a group that deserves a whole lot of attention right now, and having a title on them might just be the thing.
What did you think about the segments to build up Karrion Kross with Johnny Gargano, where Gargano and his muscle, Austin Theory, like failed at every turn 2-on-1 to try and get the upper hand on this monster?
I mean, it's a little awkward because like you're dealing with two heels right now, and Johnny Gargano like being put in a position where I feel like he's probably just being a babyface for this particular feud, and therefore they were trying to dig into like that sort of great like underdog babyface never give up type of thing, while at the same time trying to remain somewhat faithful to this like comedic heelish character that he and Austin Theory have created. And as a result, maybe it wasn't ultimately all that successful from the sounds of it, because is this a Johnny?
I thought just from a story perspective, I mean, I just thought it was a mess. It's like you can't top this guy 2-on-1. I have no desire to see this singles match.
Yeah. I don't really disagree.
So next week's show has Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly, MSK against Ciampa and Thatcher for the tag titles, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell against Io Shirai and Zoe Stark, who became the #1 contenders in I thought a pretty fun opening triple threat that they had, beating Raquel and Dakota and Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart. And then the fourth match for next week is the $1 Million Championship match between LA Knight and Cameron Grimes. So very stacked Great American Bash that they have next week.
Yeah, it looks like it's a pretty big show.
I hope we get the more the express lane version of Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, the sub 40-minute version.
I imagine on a TV show you probably have to.
I'm curious. They didn't say anything about like the commercial break gimmick that they usually do for these. Like if there's going to be limited commercial breaks, if they're going to have that, because this is one of their specials that they don't have to worry about fans going back and forth. Do they exercise that limited commercial free aspect that they had done in the past?
I guess I don't really know if they would have the same incentive this time. I mean, they still do picture in picture regardless,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, just because this is the first time without one.